Welcome to Shakti Dham series, Expressions of the Divine Feminine. We are in for a treat over the next 9 days. Together, we're invited to watch and discover different expressions of the Divine Feminine. And as we watch them, our intent is that the Divine Feminine quality or that aspect in each one of us, whether you're in a male body or a female body, to spark the Divine Feminine in a way that we see it in ourselves and we begin to express it. So 9 days. And it's the 9 days of the auspicious holiday of Navaratri. I love holidays. As an interfaith minister since 2003, I've had the opportunity of being in many ceremonies where people from different faiths, different traditions have come together. And I always ask myself, what is at the heart of this particular ritual? What's at the heart of this celebration? Because when it's fundamental, there is no discord. There's one. There's only one. And I love that the Hindu tradition takes 9 days, and it's one of their key celebrations, 9 days to honor the Divine Feminine. How great is that? And now I think about what's happening in our world today, all around the world. And I think about what the Divine Feminine and the expressing of all of us of the Divine Feminine, what that can do in the world today, where there's divisiveness, bringing it together, where there's misunderstanding, bringing divine love, where there is silence, bringing the courage. Courage is one of the most, if you think about the Divine Feminine, courage is one of the most wonderful qualities, bringing forth the courage to be lined up with oneself, with the divinity in oneself, in our own true nature. So enjoy these next 9 days. Let's do this together. And at the end of 9 days comes Victory Day. And we will have a treat, a real treat, with Her Holiness Sai Ma Lakshmi Devi in speaking with us. Okay, I'm talking with you from our loft in Denver, and I'd like to take the opportunity to share with you my expression of the 3 beautiful goddesses of Navaratri. First, there's Durga, the goddess of courage and strength. She's seen to be riding a lion. Lakshmi, who is the goddess of wealth and prosperity. Lakshmi implies the complete spiritual and material well-being of a person. Now Saraswati, goddess of knowledge. She reveals our self, knowledge like a rock. And knowledge stays with us through all time. And now with these 3 beautiful goddesses, we see Her Holiness Sai Ma Lakshmi Devi Mishra as the embodiment of the Divine Feminine, the Mahajaga Guru of Shakti Dham, home of Mother Divine. So welcome to the series of the Divine Feminine, and feel the energy of the Divine Feminine within you. Welcome. Welcome to Shakti Dham series, Expressions of the Divine Feminine. Today, we are activating abundance. Abundance of all categories. Wealth, prosperity, of love, the wealth of love, prosperity of love, joy, abundance of time, abundance of capability, abundance of material things, abundance of all things, across all spectrums and across all dimensions. Today, we activate abundance. Now, I was thrilled when Swamiji asked me to, he goes, perhaps you'd like to speak on abundance, this quality of the divine feminine. And I immediately said yes. I love speaking about it because I've been on a journey from moving from poverty consciousness to abundance consciousness. And I love sharing the story. So to do this video well, I'm imagining you and I are sitting across from each other. I'm right now here at our table in the middle of our dining area. And I am imagining that you're across from me and we're having a cup of tea and I'm sharing with you stories and I'm hearing your stories about how that happens. How is it that it happens to move from a poverty consciousness to an abundance consciousness? First off, for me, it certainly helped to have not beyond helped, having Her Holiness Sai Ma Lakshmi Devi be my instructor in this journey. But let me share a couple of things that I've learned, and perhaps by the end of this video, we've widened our aperture for having abundance in our life. Wherever you are on the spectrum, from feeling like there's always lack to feeling like always a sense of abundance, like an abundance consciousness, wherever you are on that spectrum, let's use today on this auspicious holiday of Navaratri to allow abundance to flow and to experience your life as filled and abundant. Now, that's an interesting thing to talk about in the times we're living in right now, where there's a lot of contraction. So this is about you and I having today to nurture that space inside of you and in me that is totally abundant, a wellspring, an eternal wellspring of love, of joy, of courage, all of those fantastic qualities. Okay, so a couple things that I've learned along my way. Abundance consciousness starts out with the awareness of poverty consciousness, of lack, of that feeling that I can never have enough. And then it moves to I can never do enough. And ultimately, I can never be enough. Some flavor of that is really at the heart, and what I've discovered anyway, is at the heart of poverty consciousness. This belief that I don't have enough. There's a lack of something. There's a scarcity of something. Things come in quantities, and I have a little bit and somebody else has a great deal of it. So it starts with awareness of any time we find or we become aware of living in a lack consciousness. And you know what it feels like to have that contraction. I don't have enough. I don't have enough, and I will never have enough. Now, if you take a look at my childhood, it's pretty easy to see how I learned my poverty consciousness. Later on, I knew it wasn't about the situation I was in, but at the time, it certainly seemed like the situation I was in and the consciousness that surrounded me. Now, my parents were divorced when I was in second grade, and I can remember coming back from school and wondering if we were going to have enough food. We had food stamps, we were on welfare, and ultimately we lived in the projects, the housing, the 235 plan for the government. So I always it was reinforced that there's not enough, and other people certainly had a lot more, and it was easy to compare. I didn't have enough and I needed more. And where my friends were able to go to, have different activities paid for by their parents, I would work for it. So I did learn how to be a great worker and make money so I could do what I'd like to do. That's different than shifting from a poverty consciousness to abundance, because it doesn't matter how much you actually have, it's the consciousness that's underneath of it. Because you see, the more and more I had, didn't dissolve this kind of consciousness. Like I was always afraid that the other shoe would drop and that we would go back on welfare. So that's the first thing, becoming aware of when there's this sense of lack and doing what I call micro moments in achieving or building an abundance consciousness. Micro moments. For example, let's say you go into a store and you see something that, oh my gosh, that would be perfect to have. Love that. And then you turn over the price tag and you go, I can never have that. I can never have that. And then it goes back on the shelf. In that micro moment where you say to yourself, I can never have that, it sets a certain lack energy into place. How about, you look at it and you go, well, not now, maybe later, and put it back on the shelf and say, in the meantime, these wonderful people will be taking care of this item for me. And if somebody else chooses to put it in their home for a while, they'll take care of it for me and I'll have something similar. That's a very different energy. That's an expansion energy where you could say, I can come back anytime in the store and look at that. And if it comes back one day, it's not there, then I can imagine it and that someone else is enjoying it, but I'm enjoying the fact they're enjoying that. That's a micro moment when you see, I can't, I don't know how to, anything that is a lack consciousness or a poverty consciousness, we can begin to, in these micro moments, begin to expand ourselves. So one time, I was early on when I had first met Ma. Ma was giving a darshan, which is a particular blessing, a sight of the divine, and people were lining up to get this blessing. So I stood in line and I had brought to Ma an onyx heart. It was a flat, kind of very honed, beautiful onyx heart. And in the darshan line, I was going to give Ma this heart. So as I got closer up, I was so feeling how much I was present to love, and I offered this heart to Ma, and Ma's eyes lit up. I said, yes. And I could feel Ma taking in the energy of the love and the joy of this abundant love that was flowing between the two of us. And then I went and sat down and was in the kind of being with the moment of the whole thing and the joy of the whole thing, and opened up my eyes. And now my focus went to the other people going through the darshan line. And after a while, I see this elderly woman who was having a little hard time walking, going up to the darshan line. And then Ma went to the table where she had set my onyx heart that I gave her, and then gave it to this woman. And in this first micro moment, I'm like, what is she doing? That's my heart. I gave it to Ma. But I see Ma giving it to this woman, and this woman lighting up and so happy. After that darshan, she practically skipped away and holding this onyx heart. And in that moment, I realized, rather than this protection, lack, contracting energy, like, what is she doing? I gave that to Ma. I saw what that did, that abundance of offering. And then Ma having blessed this heart and given it to somebody, and seeing what a joy it was to see this woman now being blessed with this heart. And I never forgot that moment. Because abundance always flows. It's not something to hang on to. It's not something to possess. It's something that flows. And I saw the abundance of love multiply and permeate this woman, and knowing that that was such a dear moment in her life that was also probably very pivotal. I never forgot that when it has to do with abundance and offering and being willing to receive. and then seeing it multiply right before my very eyes. So that's one lesson that began, as I said, these micro moments of moving me and my mentality from a poverty consciousness into an abundance consciousness. So another micro moment that happens a lot, let's say in my business, for example, when I first started out owning my business, I had a lack, you could say, lack consciousness that, wow, I can do things better than other people. So when I brought people in, it was a comparison of skills, a comparison of, and then, as a young entrepreneur, that doesn't work very long because people don't like it when you can do things, when you have to do things better than other people. And maybe some of you can identify with this. So I put in a principle that says we honor each one of us for our unique gifts and talents. Now you see, that's an abundance consciousness, that we each have our own unique gifts and our own unique talents, and it takes it out of a poverty consciousness of a comparison. I don't have what you have. I can't do what you, or there's some kind of, they do it better than me, I've got to do it better. All of that competition is a poverty consciousness. An abundant consciousness comes from honoring each person's unique gifts and talents. And you see how that begins to expand, and people feel they grow right before my very eyes, and they grow in front of other people's eyes. It moves into an abundance consciousness. So again, we're talking about these micro moments in building abundance consciousness. And they're all over the place. We don't even have to go to our past. We don't have to go to my welfare history to transform that. We don't have to do that. You start with today. All of us together start with today and see how many moments we can see where we're lacking, where we think we're not or never going to be able to do something, or never be able to be something, or we don't have enough of something. So see how many of those moments that you can become aware of, and then you begin to discern, and then say, how do I move that to an abundance consciousness of something that flows, that's something that is a wellspring that never ends? A big one is when someone has hurt us and we immediately contract and say, I'm not loving that person again. Matter of fact, I might even be careful. The next person comes along, I might not even give all my love to them, or be very skimpy in my love to that person. Because of what this other one, my perception of them hurting me, now I'm going to start quantifying my love and give them only a little bit here, but certainly not abundance of love. Now that's interesting, isn't it? Because love, for sure, is not a quantity. We know that intellectually. But then why do we withhold our love when our love is eternal, when our love is ever flowing, when there's always enough? Matter of fact, when we give and offer love, there's more love that comes back, and then there's more love that goes out. And it is like it magnifies itself. And that is exactly the nature of abundance. And it takes building in these micro moments an abundance consciousness. An abundance consciousness where we become aware of this lack and this quantification, if you will, of something that is bountiful. And then shift it into, I can give love. And you could say, well, they don't deserve it. They don't deserve. Who? Okay, so what? Give it anyway. Give it anyway. It's yours to give. See what happens when we're living in an abundance consciousness. And see, when everything's abundant, then we move into this beautiful, beautiful flow of life where you imagine something and something begins to manifest in this flow of life. And I say that comes from an abundance consciousness. Okay, so you probably saw this in the very first video. This is my friend, the goddess Lakshmi. Isn't she beautiful? And she reminds me of many, many, many things. But one is wealth and prosperity. And the more I consider there is wealth and prosperity, the more that is evoked in me. So you become devoted to and aware of abundance. And then that nurtures that place in each one of us. That is really cool. Now, here's what I wanted to point out about Lakshmi. She's very beautiful, and she's always on a lotus flower. Isn't that fascinating? Why is Lakshmi on a lotus flower? Because Lakshmi is very, very solid, and a lotus flower is sitting on the water, and there's a constant flow of Lakshmi, of wealth and prosperity. And there's a constant flow when the wealth and prosperity have a purpose. When there's a purpose beyond the ego. When there's a purpose to serve. Then the abundance is not only flowing, it's so fulfilling and so life-giving. And it allows for meaning in one's life when the flow is towards a purpose and a grand purpose, and when it's the flowing towards serving others, then the flow can more easily, says me, more easily come in to move out. If there's no place for it to go, if there's no need that you've determined, then why would it come in? So in this day where we are welcoming the flow of abundance, consider, what's abundance for? If things did flow in, what would I use that for? How would that increase the common good? How would that uplift humanity? How would that uplift my own sense of godliness and my own relating to you as God, as divinity? Well, on this day of Navaratri, we celebrate abundance in all its forms. And I am imagining you right in front of me. And we're sharing in this amazing energy of abundance. So welcome. I welcome you. I send and express my love for you, and enjoy this beautiful day of Navaratri.